folks coming in. Glad to have you. Welcome. Commissioners, this is today's session is an opportunity for you to have an interview as a group with Mr. Carl Smith. And this is the culmination of what has been a lengthy and fairly extensive recruitment and selection process to find a well-qualified person to assume the mantle of the Director of Community Development and fill the shoes that were left when Al Scout retired after 16 years, ably leading DCD and its wonderful staff. And
I may interrupt, some of his wonderful staff is now present in the room, indicating their interest.
Yes, absolutely. And I'm glad to have them here. And what I'd like to do is talk a little bit about the selection process, the recruitment process that we went through, and then say a few things about Carl, but I want to mostly reserve time for Carl to speak with you and for you to be able to ask questions. Excuse me, when Al retired, with his help, actually went through and looked at refreshing the job description, figured, well, now that he's been there for 16 years, he probably knows what he actually does. So we refreshed the job description for the department director and did an extensive recruitment. We had 28 applicants from across the United States, both within Washington State, but from other states as well. And after working through and, the application included cover letter, regular county employment application or resume, but also essay answers to 6 questions touching the various functions of Department of Community Development. And you have those questions and Carl's answers in your packets, which I think say a lot about his thinking process and his background. We evaluated the written materials from all the candidates, and based on that, convened a panel, an interview panel, to interview 6 of the top-rated applications. And the panel included Treasurer Judy Morris, fellow Department Director Gene Baldwin, and also the new Director of WSU Cooperative Extension, Laura Lewis, as well as representatives of the Department of Community Development itself, including Stacy Hoskins, who is our planning manager and who has been serving ably as interim DCD director, Roseanne Carroll, who's our office coordinator and lead, and also Jim Coyne, who has been filling in as our interim building official. And so getting the long-term, the permitting, and the administrative side of the house at the table and interviewing all 6 of the top candidates. And indeed, even before doing those interviews, I had the opportunity to meet with the DCD staff and hear directly from DCD staff of what their priorities were for what would make a good director. And I also met with a variety of community organizations to also get similar input from them on what were the kinds of characteristics and qualifications that they would like to see in our next DCD director. That factored in then in this first panel interviews. And coming out of that, we had 2 top candidates. I met with each of them individually and then also convened a second interview panel with representatives from the same community organizations that I've done outreach to. That included the Jefferson County Home Builders Association, the Realtors Association, the Olympic Environmental Council, Planning Commission, Bill Miller there, George Young participated on behalf of the Olympic Environmental Council, the Olympic Stewardship Foundation, and that was Dennis, and also Chamber of Commerce for Jefferson County, as well as the North Hood Canal Chamber of Commerce, as well as Team Jefferson. Who else was?
Master Gardeners.
Oh, Master Gardeners, okay. And any case, the actually Conservation District, yes, right. So it was really an extensive community panel. And they wrote their own questions. My role was to help synthesize the questions from the different interest groups. And they then asked the questions themselves to the candidates. And both Erin Lundgren, our clerk of the board, and HR manager, and I sat in and noted the answers. Coming out of that, I received recommendations from each of the panelists of what they saw as the relative strengths and in some cases weaknesses of the two candidates. It wasn't a popularity contest, it was really let's identify both strengths and weaknesses. And coming out of that, a lot of strengths in Carl Smith were identified, and clearly he became our top candidate. Carl has over 10 years of senior management experience in leading departments like community development, both here in Washington State under the Growth Management Act and in the state of Alaska. And one of the things that I think was commented on uniformly was what I characterize as Carl's great bedside manner. And that's not to say that he has nice flannel pajamas, but rather that really his communication skills, his sense of fairness and balance really came forward. His ability to listen carefully to what people have to say and to synthesize a coherent answer with some brevity too, which I could probably learn from. In any case, really jumped to the fore. Coming out of that, and just the breadth of his knowledge and experience in economic development, in working with permitting and permit streamlining, working with regulation, drafting, working on community planning. These are all areas that Carl has really deep and successful experience. And hiring somebody is a little bit akin to dating, in that you don't necessarily really know what you're getting. And for that reason, I also took quite a bit of time, and I appreciate your patience, in doing some significant reference checking with each of the jurisdictions that Carl has worked with, probably going back about 15 years. And I think you were surprised by some of the people I even found to talk to. So, and what I heard is very much confirmed with what we saw, is that in fact his track record is of being a good listener, of being balanced, of being fair, being highly organized, and you have a neat desk, I understand.
I knew there would be a problem.
Watch out.
That means I file well.
That he is supportive of staff, that he mentors his staff, and sees to their professional growth. So all of these, I think, are commendable characteristics. And with that, Carl is my nomination as to be our Director of Community Development. But of course, subject to your agreement. So with that, Carl, do you want to give a little background about yourself and why you're interested in the position, how it fits with your career and the community fits for you, and then we'll open up for the commissioner's questions.
All right, thank you, Philip, very much. And I want to start by saying you're